And we're live, guys. Now, typical live fashion, anything can happen, and I've started the live broadcast without my microphone plugged in. So it'd be interesting to know if you can hear me at all, or hopefully if the sound improves. I haven't forgot to put my mic in before. Give me the first 2 minutes, guys. Please comment your favourite moments of round 9. Let me know if you can hear me and see me. Let me know if you enjoyed the round of footy. Give me a minute to share this into the tripod group, and then we'll get underway and we'll recap a bloody good round of footy. Is the sound coming through all right, guys? I think I've got my proper mic recorded now or connected. Happy Mother's Day to all the mothers out there that follow the pod. I'm sure there's many. Thanks for commenting, guys. Okay, that's shared in. Trying to highlight all your comments, blokes. That felt try was crazy, even though that went against us. Sammy. A few boys are eating tonight, which is good to see. Okay, welcome to the tripod, where we break down every NRL game every week from a punting perspective. This is the round 9 live recap. And I'm Jacob Wynn, coming to you after a 4-0 sweep, 4 matches, 4 best bets, 4 winners. As we won a small multi. We didn't win the big multi. We went slightly more aggressive with the bigger multi and missed out with a couple of legs there. In fact, we'll get to that as we go game by game. We also missed out quite painfully on the mixed matchup. But still, what can I say? Like, not only 4-0 on best bets, but 69% for the season. We've gone 9 out of 9 rounds, hitting over 60%, and I just break down why that is ridiculous. And I have to always preface this and say it is unsustainable and totally unsustainable. And instead of thinking of it like this, this guy knows his footy, so he's winning, nearly 70% on best bets. He can keep that up. Here's the best way I'll explain it. All right, how hard is it to go 50-50 on line and total bets? It's easy, right? Anyone can go 50-50, even someone who's never watched a game. Someone flipping coins can go 50-50. How hard is it to break even punting? Well, that's actually really hard. How many people do you know who break even or in profit punting? And in order to break even punting on the footy, you have to win 52.5% at $1.91 lines. So if anybody tells me they consistently bet $1.91 lines and they hit 52.5%, 53% and they break even, I respect that. I know that in itself is hard to do. My name's not Alexi, I'm Jacob, but thanks, Thomas. So then you go, what does it take to be a professional punter, and what does it take to sell tips? And what you see people that sell tips, whether it be in Australia or in the US, that's 55%. If people hit 55%, they can legitimately say they're a professional punter, and you do see people selling tips. So that 55% winner has double the edge of somebody who's break even. So break even's good, pro punter is great. So if we're talking 69%, now we're talking about having an edge over the bookies that's 3 to 4 times bigger than a pro punter. And that's why it's insane. And that's why I can't keep it up. And if I have to admit something, I think we've probably won our fair share of the tight ones. There's been a few where I watch the footy and I go, with 15 minutes to go, this game's in the balance here. Like, the best bet is there to be won or lost, could go either way. And I feel like, to be honest, and a punter's mentality is always to say when you win, you were right, and when you lose, you're unlucky. I think we've probably had our fair share of luck. And I think, I hate to say it, but in coming rounds, we might lose like 2 or 3 close ones in a row, and it will hurt. So because I know the pain inevitably will come, because I've punted for long enough to know that you just can't keep this up, I still want to enjoy the good times. So I hope you guys are enjoying I hope you guys, whether you're getting on all of these, whether you're getting on some, whether just following for 9 weeks and me being really confident in a best bet and has talked you out of one tip you would have made that would have lost, that's extra money in your pocket. So that's what I love to see. And all I ask in return, guys, is hit that like button, comment, share your thoughts. I really appreciate it. I don't want to get too dark on you guys, but I was thinking about this weekend. I think of all 7 seasons doing the pod, this has been the least enjoyable so far, simply because I do miss my friend. I miss Alexi. It is a little bit lonely doing this all on my own. And I really, sometimes question, my motivation and putting in the effort, but it really makes it worthwhile when I get the energy from all your encouragement and knowing that there are great lads that tune in and are benefiting from this. And I love the fact that, people can follow the pod on so many different levels. Like, you guys are watching me live right now, if you are watching live, or otherwise you're listening afterwards. Like, I appreciate that. I know not as many people tune into the recap as they do the preview, and that makes sense. More people are more interested in what's going to make them money that week, so we get more views and listens on the preview, and then a few less, but still a good number of people engaging in the recap. But then, you might be also following in the group. If you've been following on the game thread, you got an extra bonus tip, $2.90 winner this afternoon from a bit of inside mail I got, that basically in the New South Wales Cup, a team had 9 changes because of COVID, tipped it in the thread, nowhere else. And a bunch of boys jumped on that and got $2.90 winner on the Dragons against Mounties in the New South Wales Cup. And then you got the Podfather one this weekend, $3.27 odds, I think it was. I got to shout out Eddie Betts, which is his punting name, and he's given out killer AFL tips. He's won 3 in a row with his favorite AFL tip. And I know a lot of you guys don't just follow me, you follow some of the other guns. And that's why I want to shout out the other guns that are on the Tripod app and in the Tripod group. I got to also shout out the NBA tips. I've given out a bunch of NBA tips this season, and they're going really well. We're winning some juicy ones. I say that reluctantly because there's like 5 games left in the season and a couple mathematically haven't won yet, but I'm very confident that I've given out some absolute jam in the NBA. I am going to get to round 9, just some other housekeeping. I had a question come up. Well, first of all, I've got to say that's not true. I know no one was happier that I got off to a good start, referring to the comment there from James about Alexi. I got off to a good start this season, and no one was more relieved or happy about that than Alex himself. He knows how hard this is to do, and he obviously is hoping that I still go well and still carry on the legacy of the pod. And as great as 27 and 12 is after 9 rounds, don't forget we went 171 and 101 last year. Like 69% for 9 rounds is great, but 63% for 25 rounds is also insane. So what we did last year is still better because it was a bigger sample size. So I don't want to take anything away from anything we've done every season. I've been really proud of all the previous 6, and I'm proud, obviously, of the results so far this year. But yeah, shout out Eddie because he's bringing the jam in the AFL. And that's what I'm saying. Like, it's not just my pods. It's not just my best bets. It's so much more beyond that. It's how much you want to get involved and follow along. I just hope that it adds something to your punting. Obviously, the more you win, the more you're going to enjoy it, but also the way you think about it. You get enjoy. So I think some people get enjoyment kind of hearing the games broken down in a different way. Now, to address one other question I got there, why don't I tip totals this year? The couple of reasons. One is I find it hard to be really confident in a total, and that game we just watched, Dragons Dogs, is a good example. I just think in the modern day rules, the swings are so violent. The number of points that are scored in a row and tries in a row, it just means you can get a good total by 2 or even by 4 points. And a total just gets rocked so quickly with with 12 or 18 points in 5 minutes, or vice versa, where you do get these games with long spreads where one opportunity is missed and then the game tightens up and then there's no point. So I find it really hard to ever be too confident on a total. And on top of that, I think the bookies aren't as confident on their totals. And for that reason, I think the bookies just mimic each other a lot more with the totals. I think there's less variance than there has been in the past. In the past, if a total was around 42 and you liked over, you'd always find 41.5. And if you liked under, you'd always find 42.5. Where now I feel like, they're much more uniform across the board. Less variance is less good for punters. So those are my 2 main reasons why I haven't tipped totals. But hopefully I've gone well enough on the sides, which you can always get the biggest limit bets down on sides. Okay, guys, that's enough kind of I don't want to say gloating, but that's enough celebration from the season so far. Let's get specifically into the games because I want to talk about what I took away from each of the games. And we started round 9 with 2 teams that made the finals in 2020, losing 50-0 and 48-0. And actually, before I discuss Rabbitohs Storm, let's get a word from Top Sport to find out how the bookies went this round.
G'day Tripod family, it's Tristan from Top Sport here. It was a very interesting week of football. The few big plunges came off actually. The first one being the Storm against the Bunnies, where the Storm were well back late with all the Bunny injuries, and they obviously covered that line very, very easily. The other one that was a big move, and the punters got us quite handily, was the Panthers against the Sharks, where the line moved a couple of points late. Penrith obviously very dominant there. So, tough weekend from our point of view. The punters way too good. The only probably saving grace at the end of the day for us was when the Titans emerged victorious over the Tigers, where there was a little bit of support at the plus for the Tigers. So, anyway, good weekend of football. We got plenty to come next week, so we will talk to you then. Thanks.
So one thing I've noticed when Tristan tells us how the bookies went is quite often I'm hearing that a lot of their worst losses for the bookies is when some of these big, massive favourites get up. And what I think it is, when you've got a line that's 18.5 all the way up to 20s, 22s, 24s, your average Joe on the street never really wants to take that crappy team plus the 20 points. So the average punter's not taking the plus. So if the bookies misjudge a game at all, or have a line a little bit lower than what some of the big bettors out there believe it should be, and the big bettors are smashing the minus on the favourite, and the average Joe is obviously smashing the minus on the favourite, and then that big favourite, it comes off and they win big, that's the worst result for the bookie. So I guess myself, I'm going to keep an eye on where maybe I should be, in the past I would have never laid a number really over double digits. We would very rarely ever have a best bet of a favourite of more than 10 points. I think in the modern era of the NRL, you do have to actually not be afraid to lay a big number of points sometimes, because we've seen the new rules, teams to score like crazy. Speaking of that, the round opened up with the Storm defeating the Rabbitohs 50-0. And as I'm talking, guys, let me know what you thought about each game and keep smashing that like button. I do appreciate the engagement and positive support. And I think a takeaway from this game, I said I leaned to the Storm minus 7.5, which it was on Wednesday, but also shouted out the boys in the group that got minus 1.5, and I hated to try and jump on a bet 6 points later. In retrospect, of course, I wish I did, because even minus 49.5 would have cashed on Thursday night. And I think my takeaway is you get a tipping point, like those players that were out for the Rabbitohs, Reynolds, Campbell-Graham, Cam Murray, Latrell still out. They're not worth 50 points combined. But I think when you do get mass changes, you get those cluster injuries and key players out, it's really hard to quantify just how important that is to a team. And clearly the Rabbitohs missed them. Although the Rabbitohs crossed the white line first, I think it was called a forward pass to Alex Johnston. And then from then, they were not in the game whatsoever. It was an absolute shellacking. And I did point out on Wednesday the form of the Storm. Since that game, they lost heartbreakingly to Penrith. Boy, have they rebounded. They have eviscerated everybody since then. And yeah, they haven't played a lot of tough opponents, but they played who's in front of them. They played up a beat-up Roosters side and they played up a beat-up Rabbitohs. But you have to take notice. And remember, the Storm did this without Pappy. Other point I have to make about this game, of course, is Addo-Carr's 6 tries. That is just insulting, honestly. For a guy to score 6. And I forget, it was Alex Johnston who got 5 last year in round 20, I think, against the Roosters to win the top try scorer belt. So I guess, I don't know, is there some justice in that this gets done 6 against the Rabbitohs? But that was scary by the Storm. And you know what? Bennett wasn't too worried. Bennett actually pointed out, hey, I didn't think my team was going as well as everybody else thought. Rabbitohs had to come from behind the last couple of games. So I think just a bit of a reality check for the Rabbitohs. But reality is, to me, they're still a top 4 team and they will get troops back and they're still going to be hard to beat. I guess a tiny other positive, maybe that Rabbitohs loss helps the Eels with a minor premiership tip, 15-1. I haven't given up on that if Penrith slip. But we'll get to Penrith because that's the next game. They beat the Sharks 48-0. And what I took away watching this game is this Panthers side is so good and they've got so much consistency, and the players are playing so well that they are increasing the degree of difficulty in the things they do. They are trying these audacious plays. Cleary looks like he's taking the piss with some of these utter no-look passes and the lines that they run. They're almost entertaining themselves by trying to play a higher level of footy. Like, I'm watching this. I don't want to be too superfluous, but they are taking the game to the next level. They're playing some, and I guess it's really hard to judge a team until they come up against some other, real heavyweights. But the things that the Panthers are doing, I feel, is you're going to put them on a level that maybe if they can execute that type of offense against the big guns in the big games later in the year, they're going to win those games. Like, they're doing some special things. And earlier in the year, I kept talking about how scary the left side attack of the Panthers was. You had, obviously, Luai swoops in at 5'8", and then Kickow outside him, and Crichton was at left centre, and Brian To'o was on the left wing, and it was just so hard for teams to stop. Well, now, since they've reshuffled, now you've got Matt Burton on left centre, and that really hasn't dropped off. But now it's the right side attack of the Panthers that's just as scary. Dylan Edwards chimes in off the back of Cleary. You got Capewell is playing unreal after making an Origin debut last year. Like, he's now one of the legit back rower threats in the comp. Now you've got Stephen Crichton on the right centre and Charlie Staines right wing. You can understand why they let Mansell go as hard as it was to do for them. So now they're just a frightening side, and I can't evaluate the Sharks very much from that game, because I think I also said on Wednesday, the Panthers hadn't beaten anybody by more than 20 for 5 weeks. So you felt they might have had it in them. And again, in retrospect, probably should have just laid that minus 19.5, and well done to anybody who did. Move on to the first game where I did have a best bet, the first of 4 winning best bets. Oh, I want to make sure you guys can see that. Sorry. That was the Eels 31 defeating the Roosters 18. The best bet was minus 4.5 with the Eels. They didn't have it all their own way for sure. But, I mean, Victor Radley had to go off for HIA 9 minutes into the game and was ruled out. That was a huge loss for the Roosters. We already know how depleted they were, and that's really why I was confident to take the Eels even as a favourite against the Roosters. You also had a key moment being the end of the first half where Niokore puts a late and high shot on Teddy that the play rolls on, and I think they've called forward pass. Hutchison scores. It would have been an 8-point try. Dylan Brown slides into him, knees into the ribs. It's a really scary injury. Hutchison has to go to hospital with broken ribs, I think a punctured lung. And it could have nearly been an 8-point try and maybe a sin bin all in one. Potentially, if you want to be really extreme, you could argue Niokore should have been sin bin for the high shot on Teddy. Brown should have been sin bin for the late knee into Hutchison, and it should have been an 8-point try. Or at least a couple of those things could have happened, and it would have been a totally different game. And instead, they somehow put both players on report, but nobody got disciplined beyond that. Well, the Roosters got a penalty, got 2 points, but then had to play the rest of the game with, only 15 men. To be fair, the Eels lost Reid Marnie as well, but that really summed up the game. I thought the Roosters were brave second half, but they were just up against it. This Eels team, I've been calling them the real deal, but when I say that, I think they're still a notch below Penrith and Storm, who I did predict to make the grand final this year. But I think Eels, as a bare minimum, have got to be making the prelim this year, and really to be considered successful for the roster they've got, they need to knock off either Penrith or the Storm and make the grand final. That's the level they need to be on, but certainly they're a top 4 side, and that's why they were worth playing this weekend against a Roosters side that's just copping a ridiculous amount of injuries. But let me know what you guys thought of that Friday night game. We'll move to Saturday, where the Knights defeated the Raiders 24-16. We had a best bet on that one. It was the Knights plus 6.5. And they were down 16-0 Newcastle at halftime. Again, I have to admit that we benefited from some key personnel being out. Ryan Sutton was, I think, also HIA ruled out, or otherwise it was injured in the first half. Joe Tappanay was injured, couldn't come back on. And that definitely, when you lose 2 key middle forwards, that made a big difference. But I just felt like the Knights had a bit more resolve in them. I've seen a really bad performance by the Knights last week at home to the Roosters that I just couldn't explain. And the fact that I couldn't explain it, I felt it had to be a bit of a blip, a bit of an anomaly. To me, the Knights are still a top 8 side Whereas what I'm seeing from the Raiders, I'm really questioning it now. And I talked all about the worries that's coming out of that camp on Wednesday night, so I won't go into it again. But then when the game started and the Raiders scored the first 3 tries and scored 2 close to halftime and seemingly blew the game out, I thought, well, my thesis on this game was the Raiders team might not all be pulling together, but clearly they've turned up to play. So I'm probably got this wrong. But I just always felt like if the Knights could get themselves back in the game, and when they did, they really turned the tide. And again, you just didn't used to see these comebacks. But the new rules, again, means teams score points in bunches. The Knights pulled themselves not only all the way back into the game, but over the top and won. And that's now, 4 losses in a row for the Raiders. They won their first 2, and they've won 1 since then. So I think that's 5 losses out of 6 games, or it might even be 6 losses out of 7. It's a really bad skid for the Raiders, and it's going to be tough for them to rebound. Whereas the Knights, that's a really confidence-boosting win they got in Wagga, and we cashed our best bet, and we cashed the Podfather in that game too. Moving on to the Titans 36 defeating the West Tigers 28. This was a game I stayed away from, and in retrospect, probably just take what I always talk about, that good team off a bad loss, which is clearly the Gold Coast Titans. But I had my reasons to maybe like West Tigers, and I think Tristan said that was one of his most heavily bet games that actually the bookies won on, was a few sharp punters liking the Tigers plus the points. Perhaps that was people backing the Tigers once they heard Ash Taylor was out. I've definitely questioned the halves play of the Titans, so having a disruption and having your $1 million halfback ruled out a day or two before kickoff, maybe people felt that disruption was what warranted a play on the Tigers, and maybe the Tigers would get some confidence from that win. But this game was 18-0 Titans in the first half. And yeah, the Tigers pulled it back within 6, but then the Titans piled on more points. And really the one thing that just stuck out to me was what is up with the Tigers conceding these long-range tries. It's pretty embarrassing how often they're getting opened up at midfield. In fact, when the Titans did score 3 straight in the first half, it was a period of the game where the Tigers did not touch the ball. The Tigers had it at 0-0. Next time the Titans got it and scored, the Tigers didn't see it again. So I don't know what's gone wrong there. The discipline isn't there, and the line integrity is not there, because we saw them get opened up time and time again against Manly. And it was the same story here. And the things that I've been criticizing about the Titans, the defense needs to improve. Well, they still let in 28 points. And their halves play needs to get better and control games. The jury's still out for me. I mean, Tanner Boyd went in there and did a decent job. Fogarty did play well. But it was against a pretty poor Tigers team. So, again, it wasn't the highest quality footy, but it was a much-needed win for the Titans. Now, Saturday night, I guess you could also argue, was not high-quality footy, but a very entertaining game. Let me drag that to the top of the screen. The Cowboys beat the Broncos 19-18. Bittersweet one for us. We did take the Broncos +6 as a best bet, so this was 3 from 3 best bets. But we also needed the Broncos to outscore the Roosters, and I should have mentioned as well, of course, Roosters ended up with 18 points, which was about par, I would say, on Friday night against the Eels. Didn't cover, but 18 points. I knew we would be about 50-50 coming into Broncos-Cowboys. We were getting $2.40 odds, so betting is a numbers game. We had good odds on that market. It didn't go our way. Although the Broncos were out in front, although they were up 18-12 and seemed to have all the running, and there was even a set where they could have opted to take a field goal and extend to 19-12. They didn't. I think they kicked it bloody dead for a 7-tackle set and invited pressure. And in the end, Brisbane not being able to put the Cowboys away hurt them, because the Cowboys came back. Taumalolo back to one of his best games after obviously a bit of an injury-hampered season. He got the try that leveled up. And then it was Val Holmes in such a kind of broken play, 5th tackle option where the Cowboys seemed to have stuffed up their chance to kick a field goal, and they just threw it around, and Valentine Holmes ended up with it and slotted it, and he slotted a few in his career, and that was the winning play. And the Cowboys won 19-18, and 18 points for the Broncos means they didn't outscore the Roosters. And can you guys believe I've given out 9 mixed matchups? We've won 4 out of 9. We're in profit because we're winning them all at $2 to up to $3.50 odds. And we have lost 3 times with the teams having a tie where we got the exact same number of points. And that really pisses me off, because especially in this day and age where the scoring is so volatile and so variable, the odds of teams scoring the exact amount of points is, I think, like 1 in 10 each week. So I'm acknowledging it's always a possibility. And the fact that it can happen, and if it does, we lose, is part of the reason why we get nice, juicy odds. But the fact that it's happened 3 times in 9 weeks, I'm sorry. Like, we could be doing even better. I think I've got on the screen, if you're having 100 on every best bet and 100 on every mixed matchup, you're up 1,400. But imagine if I'm not saying we should have won them all those tight ones, but to lose 3 on a tie, that hurts. So, and that does hurt Brisbane. But I will point out one more thing. We got good value on them in that game. As I said, I don't think Brisbane are any worse than the Cowboys, and the game basically was played to the wire. But I think the line was a bit higher because Brisbane had not dished out any effort in any away game in 2020-21 yet. So I think that they knew that, and they felt they had to do it, and they had the confidence that they could beat the Cowboys. So they didn't think they were turning up somewhere to get flogged. And they put up, like, as much as there's no moral victories, and that one hurts Brisbane, what I'm saying is at least they put up an effort on the road. They played a team to the end. This was literally the first away game of the season where Brisbane didn't get flogged. So if you want to take that as a positive, Brisbane fans, you can. Let's move to Sunday, where we completed our sweep. And I've only got a progress score there for the Dragons Dogs. That should be correct now. You can see the Sunday slate on the screen. So Manly beat the Warriors 38-32. Again, guys, please share your takeaways on that game. I have to admit, it's kind of perfect that Manly won by exactly 6, because I made this point on Wednesday night. I said I'm taking 3 different teams, +6 or +6.5. It is a key number. It is an exact margin of victory that is quite common. And that's why there is a difference between getting +6 or +6.5 or +5.5, because this line was mostly +5.5 over the weekend. And on the other hand, I know a few boys who didn't really trust the tip were on Seagulls, and that's equally a good bet if you got it -5.5 for the Seagulls, because it landed exactly 6. So when a game lands exactly on the number, I'm always happy for punters, because I always feel every punter should have won. If you liked the Warriors, you should have got the best Warriors line. If you liked the Seagulls, you should have got the best Seagulls line. Harris Tavita returned for the Warriors. And I think they got the first try. Actually, it was him, Harris Tavita, who scored the opening try. But then Turbo struck back with a first half double. Then the Warriors turned the game back around and actually led 20-12 at halftime. There was a big turning point in this game, which was the second half, where the Warriors were attacking the Manly goal line and had like a 4-on-2, or really just with one simple pass, a 3-on-1. If Nikorima just puts it on the chest of Berry, they're going to be up 12 or 14 points. He throws the ball basically into the dirt, into touch. Manly gets it and scores that set and goes bang, 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 bang. And Manly ended up leading 36-20 from that point, up to being down 20-12. At that point, I thought, Turbo's 100th game, Manly at home. You could feel it in them that Manly is a team that can score in bunches as well. And I thought maybe this wasn't my best tip. Like, I felt like the Warriors could compete here. But we got in the back door, boys, and this is one where I'm saying we got lucky, because I like New Zealand in this game, and one of my big reasons for liking the Warriors was I felt that the props that were out for the Seagulls would really kind of shift the forward battle in favor of the Warriors. But this was such an open game where props are not as impactful in games that are played like kind of touch footy like this. So I think Manly negated the loss of their props by spreading the ball, throwing it all around the yard all day. In saying that, just really lucky. Lucky that the Warriors kind of got a couple of late tries, and we covered by the skin of our teeth there to finish off a perfect 4-from-4 round, as the best bet was +6.5. And the Warriors lost by exactly 6, of course. And finally, the Dragons beat the Bulldogs 32-12. I did not have a best bet on the game. I think Jeff commented there, and I was talking about how it's really hard to be confident in totals. This game was a good example. It was 6-0 for 35 minutes, and ends up landing 44. So it goes over. Thanks. In fact, it might have even been 6-0 at halftime. So you're talking about 38 second half points. So you're cheering if you had the overs in that game. At 6-0 to the Dragons, I have to admit, I felt that the Dogs were getting on top, but you just seem to think that the Dogs had to take a chance They had to get on the scoreboard and convert that pressure into points, or the Dragons would break their heart. Sure enough, the Dogs were sloppy, lacking execution. They're just a bit limited in the talent level and ability of this squad, obviously. You have to admit Flanagan has struggled a bit, and I think they do put a bit too much pressure on him at halfback there. And then it was the Dragons who broke their heart. Hunt with a beautiful triple cutout ball to his winger, Matt Feagai, kind of opened it up. And then let me know what you guys thought about this controversial moment. I know they lost by 20, but I thought that's an obstruction by Hunt. I thought Vaughan did run behind him in the line, and it was a key moment because the Dragons were up 10-0, and then this try to Vaughan made it 16-0. Matty Blanche, you're a Dragons fan, so let me know, was that a legit try? But in the end, that obviously was the straw that broke the camel's back. From 16-0, it was a blowout. The Dogs got 2 tries. Both of them one was a strip and returned 40 metres for a try, and the other one was an intercept return for a try. So as I said, only people that were cheering those tries were people who had overs. Now, guys, a bit of exciting news to announce for Wednesday. As well as it being Magic Round. So we look forward to that as we try and go for 10 straight winning weeks on Wednesday. What I completely appreciate is that a lot of you boys love your same game multis, and more than ever, every single year, anytime try scorers have gotten really popular with punters. Now, don't get too excited because I'm not going to start sharing anytime try scorer bets. My reason why I very rarely do share anytime try scorers, although Matt Groves has just asked about the thread, it's in the Facebook group. So that's Tripod Punters Tips Forum in the Facebook group. We have got a weekly NRL tips thread, and then I always comment during the games there. And you do get extra jam. Like a couple of weeks ago, I tipped Mitch Barnett at $4 anytime try scorer and scored for the Knights there. But very rare I tip anytime try scorers. For one, it's unpredictable. I find it a little bit like a horse race. You're looking at all these different players and you're trying to guess who's going to score first or who's going to score. You can try and project opportunities that they're going to get, but it is always a bit of a lottery, like when does the center pass to the winger or not when they get an overlap? And the other big reason why I don't tip anytime try scorers is because I think the bookies generally rip you off with the price because there's no option to bet no. So you can bet Sevo will score at $1.70, but they don't let you bet Sevo won't score at $2.25. If they did that, you'd be able to see if you were getting value. Whereas the truth is, the bookie might think that a player is a 50-50 to score, and they'll just make him $1.70. And the bookie doesn't have to worry that they're giving you a 50-50 opportunity at $1.70 because there is no $2.20 on the other side for anyone to profit off. So that's the big issue. But having said all that, I understand you boys do love your anytime try scorers. A lot of people do. So I'm going to have a segment with NRL Stats Man, Brent Douglas, friend of the pod. He's going to be on Wednesday. He's going to share his favorite anytime try scorer of Magic Round. He's also going to share his favorite value anytime try scorer of the Magic Round. And he's going to share a bit of insight. And I can kind of spoil now, but Brent is as the name suggests, a stats guy. So he's a spreadsheet guy. So he builds kind of a database, and that's how he tries to predict his try scorers. And then he shares out a bunch every week and does great work. And I suggest joining his group, NRL Statsman, as I said. And what I'm also going to do with my access to Top Sport and Tristan is going to get him to share a bit of insight in how the bookies come up with anytime try score prices, because it's not obviously just as simple as each player, how many have they scored in their career, and then divide it by the number of games they've played, because it depends how many minutes the player's playing, what position were they playing. Are they up against an easy opponent this week? Are they up against a hard opponent with a lower scoring game? Like, is the other opponent really weak at defending a certain position? So there's lots that goes into it. So I think you guys will be interested in that on Wednesday. A segment from someone who tips anytime try scorers, and a segment from a bookie that has to price up anytime try scorers. A bit of insight from them, hopefully. But as always, guys, again, I ask one more time, hit that like button, comment, show your support, guys, any way you can. Give us a rating. If you do appreciate the pod, you can rate it on the iTunes app, the Apple Store, or the Apple iTunes app, whatever it is that you might listen. Subscribe on Spotify, subscribe on YouTube. That's really what keeps us going. That is the only thing that keeps us going, you guys that support. And I appreciate you. I'm going to keep working hard. As much as I said, I don't always enjoy, or I'm not enjoying it as much without my good friend Alexi. And who knows what our percentage would be if he was still here. I'm not complaining. I still am enjoying putting in the work and finding this number of winners. And I don't want it to stop. I can't guarantee it's going to continue, but I'm going to keep trying my hardest to keep it rolling. So let's look forward to Magic Round Wednesday night and the preview, which you can catch first live on YouTube. Thank you, guys. Thanks for tuning in. As always, gamble responsibly. Lego.